No actions taken in closed session. Attendance roll call. Clerk Elkishin.
Aye.
Trustee Lopez.
Here.
Trustee Reed.
Here.
Trustee Galindo.
Here.
And President Maxfield. And it looks like the student rep is left. You all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Approve, adopt the agenda. Any additions? For motion?
I move that we approve the agenda as
All in favor? Aye. District mission statement. We're a collaborative, culturally rich, educational community where rigorous and innovative curriculum prepares our students to be successful contributors to our global society. Item 10.0, public comments. We got a big crowd. Under the circumstances, that's understandable. 11.0, reports, correspondence, discussion items. 11.1, our handy dandy director of facilities who's had nothing to do the last week.
Alright, so let's see. Put this together almost a month ago, so bear with me on it. It's our facilities update for October 2017. Just an update summary. Talk about the fire cleanup. Added that to this one for today, of course. Riverbank repair. We got our facilities inspection reports back. A couple of recent projects that we did that were worth mentioning, and then just a summary of our work orders from the summer and how things went. But a lot of this is stuff from over the summer. For right now, the fire cleanup, I don't have anything on this, but Jeff is here. Julie was here, but not everybody was here. We got in here on Monday morning. We went and evaluated the facilities, went to the classroom, checked the outside, make sure there wasn't any damage from the wind or anything like that. We had a couple of trees that fell over here, but all we had to do was prop them back up. They didn't break off or anything. There were some classrooms that had some smoke smell. A lot of the bigger rooms had smoke smell, like here, two gyms, the empty room at the elementary school. Custodial, maintenance, and grounds went through and went into all the locations, wiped down all the hard surfaces with damp rags and cleaning solution. Vacuumed all the floors with vacuums that have HEPA filters, which is what you want for the small ash particles to not come out. Mopped the hard surfaces. And, we also had restoration management come out and go through the questionable rooms, so wipe them for residual ash, just see if they can see residual ash or so. Nothing came up. They also looked at the returns in the ceilings where the air comes back to the HVAC units, the light on that. Nothing came up there. We did decide to go ahead and have air quality tests done. We sampled 20 locations throughout the district. Classrooms, empty room, gym, administration building. We should have those results this afternoon, is what I've been told. We asked for a 24-hour turnaround. The restoration management company is going to be coming through sometime this evening, I guess, at this point, to do some possible carpet cleaning and set up some machines to get rid of odor. They're kind of like old ozone machines, but they're called hydroxyl generators now. It doesn't deteriorate fabrics or plastics. It's safe to be in the room when they're running. So I'm just waiting. They're waiting for all the equipment to come together from other disaster areas. Once it all comes, and as soon as I have an idea of what our results are, I'll let the superintendent know. For But the industrial hygienist that came out and took the samples, really didn't feel like he could smell or sense any kind of issue with air quality. So, is everybody familiar with how they do that? Basically, they take an air pump that pumps air for 2 hours through a filter, and that little filter gets sent to the lab. They look at it under a microscope, count the particles. If they're above a certain level, then they'll go to a more detailed analysis of what those particles are and determine from there if it's safe. But if the particles are below a certain threshold, that's not good. Is there any questions on any of the fire stuff?
It smells good here. I mean,
It does, but a couple of rooms that didn't smell very bad. Now that the heaters are on and stuff, the smell's coming up a little bit. But we'll get a lot of those rooms.
So when all that equipment finally makes its way up here, school would be in session already? Or-
No, it's supposed to be today. It's expected the equipment to arrive at their place at 2, and then we head this way. I'm hoping to hear from them really soon. The equipment basically will run all weekend. So they'll come in and determine if the carpet needs to be cleaned or anything like that. Then they'll set up the machine in each room. Like the gym, each gym is 9 machines because it's such a big area. But for a classroom, 1 generator will run. Those will run all weekend. They'll be back on Monday to grab them. I don't know that they make a lot of noise. If you're familiar with the ozone machines that people used to use, those don't make really any noise. It's a little fan run. So I don't think it would disturb anything. And students and teachers can be in the room when they're running. But they'll come back through, make sure that they're gone, and pull up the machines.
so we're in pretty good shape.
Yeah, we.
Thank you.
I think we've done a lot to kind of mitigate any issues we may have.
So you push that button and Paula moves. It's pretty cool.
All right.
That you got doing.
So on the Riverbank project, this isn't totally up to date. The rock placement was completed just previous to the fire coming through. They had started on the vegetative soil lifts, which is almost like burritos of soil and seed that get stacked on top of each other and then backfilled. Similar to the rock process where they stack a rock and then backfill and compact that dirt. The vegetative soil lifts go up and get compacted, and then those are what basically revegetate the entire top of the bank. Looked like they were about 3 or 4 levels up the last time I saw them. They're probably halfway up the rest of the way on the bank. I was hoping to confirm that we were going to be able to do it, but I got sign off from Geotech this morning, about 10 or 11, that we can go ahead and open the playground. Right now I have a load of chips, fall material coming through. Should be delivered right now so that they can get that distributed. The fences are already removed. They've been brought back. We pressure washed the playground, checked to make sure it was still in good shape. So right now they're just distributing the chips. We'll put the playground board back up and this will be ready to finally.
That'll be a surprise.
Yeah,
Wouldn't it?
exactly. So that was good. We won't be able to remove all the fencing yet, because the fencing across the back of the play area, the grass area is still going to stay there, because they still got about 2 weeks left of actual work between finishing off the riverbank portion, then they got to bring in irrigation to keep that maintained and get it to generate. And then they're also going to handle replacing grass that was in the work area. I had just gotten an email back from the Napa Flood Control about a project that they have that students could be part of too, where kind of like, if you're familiar with the back grass area, there's a fence line that goes around the back to the garden. About 15, 20 feet off that fence, they have a program that would support the bank and make it a little stronger if this ever happened again. Like say we lost some of the bank up in that area. If we have vegetation behind the current vegetation, when that falls off, this vegetation will take its place and hold the riverbank, so we don't have the same issue we're having right now where there's just nothing that's holding it in place. So I haven't been able to follow up with them. It sounds like it's something that we can have done, where basically they'll come out, with the help of our grounds crew and maintenance staff, and do a planting of native vegetation in that area. So I should have some more information on that this week. From there, once they're out of the river and done, we'll be putting a fence up. I've already had companies come out and give me pricing. So as soon as they're ready to go, I'll just get them scheduled and we'll put a new fence up. I'm going to put a gate access to it so that, one, we have to monitor it for the next 10 years. So we're going to need to get back there anyway, but just balls and stuff. Any questions?
With adult supervision.
Yeah, exactly.
Just send the kid in.
Yeah. Are there any questions on that? I think, eventually I'll have some better pictures, but you see in here, this is existing trees. These are actually some of the trees that fell during all the storms. Those have been anchored into the wall. So this is basically going to be rocks going up, and then from here up is going to be those vegetated soil lifts. And if you see these sticks poking out that look like rebar, those are actually willow tree, ash tree, and I want to say cedar. And it's not just something you can go to Home Depot and get. They literally go around the area harvesting this from people's property with permission from water districts. So when I was out there last time, they had a truck full of fresh cut branches that they take down to the water, let soak, and then they start to sprout, kind of like a potato. And once they get to that point, then they embed them into the actual riverbed. And then into all these rocks and stuff. So Aaron was there to see some of them. It just looks like rebar sticking out, but they'll eventually sprout and turn into trees and bushes to slow the flow of the water down, so that it doesn't come rushing down past our area. It's all just part of the design that we have to do.
So this has been a little bit of a forced education for you.
Yeah, exactly. I don't ever have to use it again. But it's been interesting. So,
Click that button and move.
So, luckily enough, we were able to improve from last year. The elementary school went from good to exemplary with a 99.07, which is up 0.74%. High school was already pretty high, but we didn't quite get to exemplary, but we did increase there. The junior high went to 100%, and Palisades remained the same. So yeah, overall, we've gone up to a 99.4 for the whole district. So
Yeah, be proud. Good
yeah,
job.
it's good. And then this is just a couple of the projects that were worth mentioning. I think I mentioned at the start of the summer, they didn't have anything big and extravagant going on, not a whole lot that was going to be all that noticeable. But for the recycle program, all we're waiting on is some labels for the new bins. The Upper Valley Disposal Amanda that I'm working with, these bins that they ordered came with the wrong design. There were so many of them that it was just not worth the time to ship back and be stored away. So she has to come, she has to get recycling signs that fit in that little oval circle there. Bottle filter stations, the only one we have left to put up is over by 28, 29 here. The fountain that's there is the old porcelain 3 valve style. We have that silver one there. You can see that on the right up top. Those are the fill stations that we're putting on them. But we had to pull a set of fountains like those out of the gym. If you remember, they decided it was a good idea to put fountains right behind the basketball hoop.
I don't know how we missed that one.
I don't know. But we pulled those out once we had a chance to put these particular ones up in place of that. We put a fill station on that. Let's see. The microphone
Are
work.
the kids using them?
No, they really like the one in the MP room in the elementary school.
Good.
Unfortunately, here they didn't put anything. There's not a drain or a water source anywhere in here, so it's pretty costly to get that in eventually. Maybe I'll put one somewhere back over there by the sink, but it takes maybe a couple more hours. Microphones, they were upgraded when we came last time, but they were awful. They came out, they were concerned with possible feedback on having this many mics on. So the reason that they were going in and out is because there was a delay on each one. So it would pick up a sound, but it wouldn't turn on for like a split second. So they turned all that off, just set them up normal, and yeah, so far they're doing their thing. This next one was, the next two actually was a little coordination with the IT department, Marty. He had purchased 6 projectors for the remaining classrooms at the elementary school that have had old projectors. We weren't able to modernize the room or do any sound or anything in it, but we at least were able to get them some projectors. So Marty bought the projectors and he came in over the summer with the help of Kyle and the suits that they went in and knocked those out. Classroom 26 here at the high school is always having issues with too many computers on the wireless, so we were able to grab data cable from the classrooms around the area. Like 25 didn't need the 15 or something that they had in there, so we pulled some of those up to the ceiling and just redistributed them, brought them down into the area where all those computers are, so that they're all hardwired and they're not trying to fight for wireless. And then last is all the mandated testing and inspections are completed. I had an issue with the fire company, come out and do some programming on the panel here. Every fire company that I found that can work on this panel is always busy and always trying to get extra programming. They were supposed to be here today. Funeral was the reason that I was told they couldn't come today. All the other inspections and everything were completed. I think that's it, but like I said, the work orders, this is class. We started this summer with 12 deferred work orders from the school year. This is one we couldn't really get done. By the end of the school year, we're just down to 1. Just in the summer period, which was pretty much while the admins were here still, we got 121 additional work orders that came in June 1st through August 10th. We were able to knock out 108. 13 are currently in progress, but I would venture to guess those 13 are no longer in progress. I'll have a chance to check that. And then I want to say we got back on Thursday. Between Thursday and Friday, I think we had 52 work orders. This actually is what I was talking about. You see these coming out?
Yeah.
Coming out of these rocks? Those are all those shoots of different branches I was talking about. So eventually those will all grow, and the roots will stabilize the bank, and the brush that comes off will slow down the river from
A lot of stuff's been going on.
Yeah, exactly. Definitely a learning experience.
Question? Hey, Chris, we really appreciate you and your staffs, all
Sure.
your help, especially in the last week.
Yeah, it's been interesting, but I'm glad it's over and we're about to get back to normal.
Don't we all?
Yeah.
1.2, LCAP approval letter. Superintendent.
This is just a standard letter that the county sends out saying that our LSAT is completely
11.3, Principal Nicole.
Should we use microphone or? All right.
Well, the only reason I'm doing this so they can count and figure it out.
Oh, so
Yeah.
should I use
Yeah,
it then?
probably should.
Okay.
Not that these are a big hit sensation on YouTube, but
People watch.
yeah, drop them.
All right, well, since I'm the first school report, we did miss our last board meeting, and we actually, for the elementary side, did have a fairly full report area to give you. So I do want to highlight some of that, although it was back on the 11th, I believe we were supposed to meet. First of all, an update for elementary is that we use what's called standards-based report cards. And our previous provider was through the online and assessment resource services, and they ended up being bought out by a company called Illuminate. And so as a result, we are uploading our report cards onto the Illuminate data management system. I'm pleased to announce that we do have everything logged on and ready to go, but one of the things we did discover is that there are some inconsistencies from grade to grade on the report cards. Teachers also reported that when they originally had designed the report cards, it was before they had standards-based materials where they could see certain standards being highlighted more than others. And I'd just like to go into detail on that now because in December, we are going to be relooking at that and getting teacher feedback during our release days, which means that in the spring, I'll probably be presenting you the suggested updates. So I just wanted to let you know on that issue. Then we also have Halloween coming up next week. We had parents at the beginning of the year, parents last year, who said, you know, we want to relook at this thing of allowing students to have costumes or not having costumes. And really, I felt that we needed to solicit input from our parent community. So what we did is we did surveying for 2 newsletter cycles, asking parents their view on this. We ended up with 93 responses. 83 were in thumbs up. 10 said no. But based on that, we are allowing costumes. It's optional. It's not mandated. The other thing that also did come up is with the fires. We had a lot of displaced families. And so parents reached out to me during this time and said, you know, we really want to make we already had scheduled an activity for our students after school. It would be our second annual Halloween Safety Carnival. We're actually doing it this year at the Boys and Girls Club in their new facility, which if you haven't been over there, it is really amazing. But parents did reach out and say, you know what, we really want this to be our event coming back. So we are reaching out to parents this week to do a costume exchange so that we get larger access. We did an on-call yesterday. We're following up with a newsletter on Monday. We have a parent who is going to be available, I believe, 2 times next week and then the day before, just so students who want to have access to a costume can have access to a costume. And we're also doing a planning meeting on Monday as well, and we're going to really be pushing that at Coffee and Conversation, which I'll talk about in a moment.
So before you go on, just real quick, what's the pro and con about costume or not?
Well, I think that this is now my 3rd school.
Okay, so
So I was at one school where it was no. They, after I left, did a similar process and ended up being optional. The previous school I was at before here was, you know what, wear them, don't wear them, it's your choice. I think that for our school, what was happening is that we had teachers who were wearing costumes and then the students who weren't wearing costumes. And even teachers said, you know, maybe we need to relook at this again. I think that the pros is that many schools in the area do allow it. The cons is that we have to be, and I've been putting this over and over again in the newsletter, is that there is an expected dress code with costumes. You have safety things. You also have to consider we have kids age 5 through 13. So we don't want to have students in costumes that are going to scare kids. And I did have that happen once at a school during a parade where we had to do a rainy day route, and unbeknownst to me, we had some scaring happening around the corner of my poor kinder students. So that could be a con, that if you don't front load your community well enough, you could have scared students. Also, I worked very closely with the kindergarten teachers because those are our brand new to school students. And parents have been doing a really great job of outreaching to them, saying, well, what do you think of this costume? Because a consideration we also have to have is that students need to be able to be independent in these costumes. They can't have something where they need to use the restroom, that they can't get out of their costume. We can, already kind of project that forward as to what could happen. So we have been putting quite a bit of information, and again in our newsletter, it's been pretty much for the last month and a half, information on expected and non-expected costume wearing to be happening. And I think that also what I've also put out there, because I have to acknowledge that I had 10 families that said no. And so we also have been putting out there as well that teachers have been reaching out to families to talk about what specifically is going to happen in their classroom, because we do have some students that for family and or religious reasons cannot participate in any activities, and so we need to do our due diligence to make sure that those families know and have alternative activities for them. The other thing is that purposefully this year we're not doing a parade on campus because we have the activity after school. And really it's going to be one of those things where you do it, you reflect on it, and then you improve upon it or make decisions based on what you see happen on October 31st. So I hope I answered your question.
No, just because we've done it, we haven't, and to be honest, I can remember if my girls did or didn't. That'd be a Karen question.
And I think, and that's part of the reason why I wanted to do this survey. Part of when you are a principal at a school, you have a lot of conversations in the parking lot, in the quad, at CalMart, and so I didn't feel like I had a really good basis to make that decision, and that's why I wanted to reach out to the parents. So,
Nicely done.
yeah, and so part of it is that I wanted to explain some of that process, because right now that is a focus of our parents as we're really trying to come back and get reoriented to school, because as you're aware, it's been 2 weeks. First of all, I really want to thank Erin for flexibility. It's been a hard 2 weeks because we were scattered on both sides of the mountain. We had communication issues, cell phones go down, internet go down. I know at one point I sent a teacher over to her house with a phone, so
Yes, you did.
and so what we did last week and this week is meet as an administrative team and really put that groundwork in preparing for our students. This has been a really remarkable event, and I don't even think I've even processed the size of the Spire, and it'll probably take me a while longer to fully process it, but I think we knew as a team that we needed to be prepared for our students first, and secondly, to help our staff be ready as well. And what we did today really helped with having a district-wide meeting. I think you were there this morning, saw you from across the room. And I thought that the calibration and the reporting on where we were at with the fires, the progress we've made on them, it was really humbling to hear how close things got here, and I think that really impacted the staff as well. And then spending time and talking about what does trauma look like for a student, and what is our plan going forward. And so then we met site-specific at my site. What we did talk about are the supports that we are looking at offering our students and families the first 2 days. Specifically, Andy over at the Family Center has arranged counseling, crisis counseling to be on campus. We plan on using the library as a starting point. We're also offering coffee and conversations, a little off schedule. I know we usually do it on Fridays, but something I was thinking about in coming back is that for students who've been out of school for 2 weeks, it is almost like starting August 10th, 2017, and something that we do for our kindergarten families to help with that separation piece is to have them come for coffee and conversation and learn about programs and services in kindergarten. In this case, on Monday, we are inviting families to come into the multipurpose room. I'm going to go over with them the crisis counseling available for students. And Andy is going to be talking to families about programs and services available to families. And our families, even though most of them ended up in Napa County at 2 different facilities, sometimes when you're in the middle of it, you're not really hearing what's available, so I don't think it hurts to hear again what can be available for families. In the meantime, when I met with the staff, we looked at various activities that we could do with students to help them be able to process this. And also with the understanding that it's really about what we call temperature checks, so seeing how your students are when they get there, what their reaction is going to be, giving them the option that if they don't want to share, they're not prepared to share, we're not going to force them to share. We're going to have students all at varying stages, and as we talked about today, going through a crisis isn't a clear line. It isn't like today I'm going to feel this, tomorrow I'm going to feel that, the next day I'm going to be through this phase. So teachers will be doing activities with students, and those who are needing more time, needing someone to talk to, we're going to be offering counseling to. We're also going to be having check-in at the beginning of the day and also at the end of the day, so that staff can be made aware of trends that they're seeing with students. We're also still working on getting a full list of students directly impacted by the fire. And George Valenzuela, the vice principal, is outreaching to those families as well. So staff is actually still over finishing up and getting ready to welcome our students. I think that they're very glad to be back. I know when I visited the students over at the Boys and Girls Club, they're glad to see familiar faces. And I think it was really good for us to be able to get together as a staff today and to be able to process this as professionals and to be able to support each other before seeing students on Monday. So I know this was a longer report, but
No, you're on a roll.
that's what we have been doing, and there are some ties to it, and I'm really grateful, especially to the parents who started that, the Halloween Safety Carnival, that we can jump on and move forward with something coming back.
If I can emphasize that we can emphasize the importance and talk to those parents who are organizing the festival to be very mindful that there's a lot of loss in this community in terms of wages. We at the Family Center are going to start processing payments of rent and other bills, water, safety net things, and a lot of the families are not going to be able to purchase costumes. They're not going to be able to, they're going to be making decisions between purchase a costume versus food with a little bit that they have. So if the parents who are organizing this, they need to understand the enormity of the situation and plan for it, because I can assure you that there's going to be a lot of demand for costumes, and if they can find alternatives for it, teachers may be using creativity to create with paper costumes and boxes and things like that. Or going to an organization who will be willing to donate Halloween costumes in bulk, because that's going to be a lot of demand on those days. So just for you to be aware, we have so many families coming to our doors asking for assistance with rental and basic necessities. It's 2 weeks of wages lost, and that means a lot to the families. That means they don't have the money to pay the rent, and it's either purchasing a Halloween costume or putting a roof over their head. So just be mindful. The other thing that I wanted to say is I want to praise your staff who show up at the shelters. We have 3 staff members, and it meant the world to the children who were there. Nina Peterson was there, Otto Duarte was there, Matthew Godinez show up, and the look in the faces of these children, knowing that people that they spend a lot of time with during their life care for them is so important. I know that not everybody was able to do it. Not everybody was, away trying to be safe with their families and stay with their families. But the ones that came made a big difference. I know that Amy Palma was also there for a short time, and you can see that at the shelter at the Napa Valley College, it was all the Calistoga families there. All these children from our schools were there, and it was very nice and I was very grateful to see them come in and cheer the children up and talk to them and make them feel that somehow this was going to be okay. Also George, it was very interesting because my family and I were evacuated through Sonoma County, and we didn't know anybody in that area, so we ended up in a shelter trying to figure out what to do. It was 5:30 in the morning, and the first person that we met at the shelter was George. And he was there with his family, and for us, it was like, what are you doing here? And he said, well, I'm helping, and this is my wife, and these are my children, and hug us and make us feel like it was okay. And we were scared, we were, running from the fire, and there was George, working for the community. So you have some people in your staff that are very valuable, and I really appreciate that.
And that's one of the reasons why we are pushing to do exchanges. I can also outreach to the teachers. They have experience in the past of doing activities with the students, just to help them be able to make something to feel like they can participate again. We are making it totally optional. It's not a mandated thing, and that's one thing that we did talk about this morning in supporting each other. The other thing I completely forgot to inform you of is that we are moving some of our dates, specifically the end of the trimester, because we've missed the last 2 weeks, and we're also moving parent conferences. Something that we did talk about today was that we have families who've gone 2 weeks without wages, and we're going to need to have some flexibility about when we're going to be able to meet with them, because the current parent conference structure is that we do a minimum day, and then we have parents come in during the day to meet with teachers. And so teachers are going to be working in the next couple of weeks as well to try to come up with an amenable time, because we know that also is a huge sacrifice to ask parents after missing 2 weeks of work, hey, can you come in at 2 o'clock in the middle of your day and potentially miss time to come and talk with the teacher. So that's another thing we're considering working through as well. And so we will get the updated calendar to you. George is working on that, and we're advertising the dates right now.
Thank you, Nicole. Mr. White.
Thank you. I could go through my board report, but I think you can read it yourself. It's fairly thorough. I just want to talk about what took place today. I know that maybe Aaron briefed you a little bit about what happened here with the presentation to all the whole district staff. We went back to our school site and then strategized how we were going to bring our students back and what we felt would be the best practice for them. And we came to a conclusion that this is what we're going to do. We're going to start off the day with students reporting to the large gym. We'll make an all-call about that. All our staff will wear their calico green. We're going to form 2 lines that lead into the gym. We're going to almost do like football court. They're coming into something, the kids will go between the 2 lines. We're going to greet them, welcome them. We'll get them into the gym. We'll have a couple of our mascots there. It'll be, very sort of upbeat, a little more lighthearted with that. And then I'll greet the students, welcome them back, and address, maybe some of their concerns and what the day is going to look like. They're going to go back to their advisory class first thing, and it's a smaller venue, and in and out of advisories, there's going to be an opportunity for check-ins. Students will be put in a circle, they can give a chance to share about their experiences, and also some gratitudes they might have. And some of the teachers might have staff, kids do some writing to sort of share their feelings and what's going on for themselves. And it's really just an opportunity for them to reconnect. I bought Hershey Kisses for all the kids. Like, it's one of the things that, Miss Owen, she does in her advisory, she explains, the kids do a shadow kiss like that. And so we thought that'd be fun. And then they're going to put little notes on kids' desks, and they've all made signs for their doors with every student on their advisory there. So, and then we've made a big sign, a big banner, and just the idea is just to make the kids feel welcome. We've gone through and called those families who we know lost their home and assessed what the needs were. Myself, our VP, Monica Baldonegro, and our counselor, Michelle Craig-Miles. And so we know one of our students needs their uniform replaced, books, backpack. Another student needs their backpack, books. So we're going to have all those ready to go first thing when they show up to their advisory. So they'll be ready to go. Of course, like Nicole said, we'll have therapists here on campus. Also to our staff, if our staff gets a little stressed out and they need a break, they'll know that they need to contact myself, Monica, or Michelle, Greg Morales, and we'll come relieve them from their class so they have someone to talk to. None of our staff lost their home, which is great, but just listening to your stories about the shelter, I think our staff would have loved to have been there, but they were everywhere. I mean, amazingly, we had people all the way in, quite a few people in Sacramento, a lot of people with families that were evacuated in the Santa Rosa area, Windsor area, and in Hillsburg and Cloverdale, were locations that people were evacuated. So they were all over the place. I had to go down and rescue my mother and my aunt and 2 elderly people, so I was taking care of 4 people over the age of 85, which was an experience for me.
It's like taking care of kids.
It basically was. I was, yes, shopping for products related to that. So they did say they wished, and Dean was there today and talked about the experience about the kids, and they all wish they could have been there too. So we're getting those backpacks together right now. We have a community who is interested in doing that for us, someone from outside our community. We're going to hold an extra staff meeting next week to sort of get check in with the staff and students. There'll be a survey that we'll do during our advisory time on Wednesday. We're going to forego silence state reading, and just to get a gauge on where students are mental health-wise and if they need anything. We're going to continue on with sports as usual. The general theme at the outcome of our meeting was we want to get back to normality as soon as possible. PSAT was supposed to take place during the time period when we were gone. We're going to offer it to our students on Wednesday. If they want to do it, they can, but we want to provide that normality. We've been reached by 2 football teams outside the area. One team we played last year, Mark maybe helped, was in Los Gatos or Los Altos, Pinewood, was it? That they want to hold a fundraiser football game and have our team go down there, and the community wants to support and raise money for, and maybe that's something that we extend to the family center, whatever profits, to help out those families in need. So we just need to figure out how we can get our young men down there. And so that's one school, and another school in Antioch that wants to do a fundraiser football game. Our kids missed out on one of their football games during this time, and they would like to make that up.
There's just a couple games, another game was due to scheduling. But yeah, I'm pretty sure people will be up for it.
I hope so.
I'm gonna punt on that.
Okay, okay. So it's nice to see people from outside of our town reaching out and learning how they can help. So we'll probably start putting together, if you know of lists, because I'm getting people contacting me as the principal. So just let me know what your needs are so we can convey that to these outside organizations or people that think that's the best venue. Any other questions for us?
Question back over there, in the audience.
What time are you doing the welcome back to the gym?
We're right off the very bat. Marcy put in a work request and contacted Kyle and Jesus. I get a look there, I can read the facial expressions.
Oh, we're gonna just have some machines in there, most likely, but the guys can move those out of the way. I just wanted to find
As long as
out
the
if
big-
we needed to get them out of the way early or what time.
We felt that it would be important for some of our kids, they have not seen each other yet. That just to get them in one place so they can go around, hug each other, see each other, and then we'll send them off into their advisory where they'll have small group discussions and then on to normality with periods 1 through 7.
Thank you.
Any
I just
questions?
want to share a little story about the shelter. There was a girl from the junior-senior high school who turned 15. It was her birthday, and Biddy, with the help of other people, organized her celebration at the shelter. Thank you, Julie, for your offer to pay for the cake. I don't know if that happened, but it was very nice to see that they did something for her. They had the shelter, cake and balloons and singing, and Magdalene is bringing her a little something. That was really, really nice.
So ended up, because he said to me, he couldn't find it, and I was working. I wasn't going to the store.
He went to the one shelter and they have moved them to another one. So then the girl, they finally found her at the church, at the shelter of the church. So they celebrated her quinceañera.
That's a birthday party she'll never forget.
She was not. She was not. So it was.
That's a great story. Thank you for sharing.
Any questions? Thank you, guys, appreciate it, all you do. Student report, that's submitted, and the student is not here. And moving on to superintendent's report.
So under LCAP goal number 1, academic excellence for our students, the Smarter Balance assessment results, again, it seems like eons ago, from last spring were released to the public at the end of September. And as a district, I'm going to be bringing the California School Dashboard local indicators back to the board, It's required at the November meeting because they have to be approved by you. And then the CDE takes those, and put them into the dashboard, and then the dashboard will be released to the public on December 1st. So I had asked Lucy to come to the board and present the dashboard results to you at the December meeting.
December, November.
December. So November is when you'll get the local indicators, you'll approve those, and then the dashboard is published in December. Also, again, going way back in time, FAFSA Day is always October 1st, and so this year that fell on a Sunday, and so Carla Serber opened up the library, and, as our career college counselor, she's doing a fantastic job. So I stopped by that day just to talk to the parents, and overwhelmingly, they were very appreciative to have that opportunity to sit with their student and have her walk them through it. So just a great service, and I couldn't believe how many parents actually came with us. So kudos to her for that.
I believe one of our miracle workers, Alex, was there too, was he not?
Yes, I'm sorry, he was, yes.
So he's a college graduate, and he decided to go back and serve the miracle and Spanish speaker, so it was fantastic.
Good. It's a complicated process.
Under LCAP goal, which is providing a safe and healthy school environment, I want to give kudos to both Chris and Jenna. they quickly contacted our insurance company about, the restoration of our classrooms. And just today, Kathy Bone came up to me and said that there are districts in Santa Rosa who are now prohibited from opening because they are so far down the line for these companies to come in and do their assessments. So these two, got to jump on it, and I'm very grateful that now we can open up on Monday, having already completed that process. Really appreciate it. And this was all, new for everybody. And experiencing a natural disaster and having either little or no communication was very new to me and something that I had not anticipated. Not having cell service or power at any point or at one point or internet. And so that's something that we need to learn from and plan for if that were to happen again. So the safety committee, John is in charge of the safety committee, and they were supposed to have met this week. Obviously that didn't happen. So when we get back, the safety committee will gather and discuss some of these things that if they were to happen in the future or while school was in session, how would we deal with that? Because we did not have to evacuate kids from the campus. That could have happened during the school day. So we really got lucky that it happened outside the school day. And under LCAP Goal 3, enhancing communication. In the interest of improving communication, we had developed a communication plan. Paula has been researching a new hosted platform for our website, and she spent some time this week doing that. She's also created new Facebook pages. She actually had just created them, was ready to roll them out when all of this happened. So they are now up and running, so we would appreciate it if you would like them for us, please, and share them for those of you who really like social media. Julie?
And some that don't.
And some that don't. And she's going to send a notice out to all staff, so they will do the same. And then she also just finished drafting, or had finished drafting, our new bi-monthly newsletter. We were getting ready to publish it, just on the cusp, and so obviously it's 2 weeks late, so we're going to probably put out a different edition because it's kind of old news now. So that will be coming out soon. It will be electronic. It will go to, it's intended just for staff and the public. It's not a parent newsletter. It's just basically highlighting, celebrating all the great things that happen in the district. Let's see here. I completed the 90-day plan for transitioning into my position. And I, as you know.
What a 90 days, huh?
Yeah. I focused a great deal of my time by holding individual conversations, as I told you I would do. I think I met with 102 people, had conversations, and I took notes on all of them. I learned a lot about the district and the community. I had intended to share it at this regular board meeting, but I'm going to postpone it until November when I think more public will be.
Good, that's a good idea.
And then I'm also going to, once I've shared it with the board, I'll be sharing it with staff members as well, going to each of the school sites so they hear the same information if they're not able to the district or to board meeting. And then under LCAP Goal 4, which is developing a positive and unified school culture, I also want to publicly thank Beatty. I have a friend who's a dean at Napa Valley College, and Diana was down at the shelters for I think 2 days, and she just was incredibly impressed with how she was organizing things for the kids and really concerned that they had things to do. And then also my compliments to the Family Center. Diana also said what an amazing group of people. Indira, the things that they were doing for the families. She said she could not believe what she saw, how much support was being provided to her families. As the principals mentioned in the reports, our staff is working together to provide different activities for the kids. We also want to support our families who lost their homes. So we decided as an administrative team during one of our phone conversations or one of our in-person meetings that we want to collect money from our staff and provide gift cards for those kids who lost them. Also, Senator McGuire's office has offered to give every child in California whose home is lost a $250 gift certificate. So I was asked for the number of students, which we think is 7. I was to provide that information, so we should be receiving those very soon. We also were given the offer of new backpacks full of school supplies, so the principals have arranged for those to be delivered. And then as far as social emotional support, Andy was instrumental instrumental. He also attended, or sat with me during one of our conference calls, and he was able to get additional counselors here from Ventus, and then also County Mental Health provided 2 additional counselors. So I feel like our kids are going to be well supported when they get back to school. And those counselors were also available on campus today for staff, if they felt that they needed to talk to somebody, because it's been traumatic for everybody. We held our district welcome back breakfast, and I think one of you mentioned that Mayor Canning did a fantastic job of addressing the group. It was informative, bit of humor. I appreciate
It should be a game show.
Yeah, he did a great job. What else were we forgetting? One thing I'd like you to consider, this has been a past practice of mine, is that on every agenda, you have an item where you recognize either community members or teachers or students who have done something exceptional, either in time or in achievements for the district. It takes just a few minutes, maybe 5 minutes every meeting at the most. We can present them with a nice certificate, give them some recognition, and then have their picture published in the paper with the board. I can think of many people right now, just given this crisis, that would
That's going to fill up the year.
So, just something for you to think about if you're interested in doing it. It's an easy thing to do. And lastly, I gave a lot of thank yous today at the breakfast, including, maintenance staff were amazing. They were here. I told the group, Chris and Jesus and Kyle were here last Monday and Tuesday. Nobody else in the district was. And then again, Monday morning, they were the first 3. And the maintenance group has been incredible. This entire facilities look beautiful. It looked like the first day of school again. Really nice. So thank you to them, and thank you to my administrators. We had conference calls, we had individual calls, we met in Healdsburg, trying to plan and be ready for this week back, and our teachers and students coming back. So thank you to you two, and to our assistant principals. That's it.
Well, nicely done on the breakfast this morning. I think that was very important for staff. Obviously, from what you guys were saying too, it meant a lot to the staff, and it's going to be beneficial for the kids on Monday. So thank you. Yeah. We could tell. Okay, moving on. Consent calendar requires roll call vote. Actions proposed for the consent agenda are deemed routine in nature and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless any member of the board, audience, or staff requests specific items to be removed from the consent agenda for separate action. Looking for consent. Mark? And Matt? All in favor? Aye. A roll call vote. Clerk Pelkishin? Trustee Lopez? Aye. Trustee Reed? Aye. Trustee Linda? Aye. And President Maxwell? Aye. 13.0 action items. Protocol for action items includes staff presentation, questions from the board, public input, deliberation by the board, and voting by the board. During the public input, there will be a 3-minute time limit per person. 13.1 resolution 17-1804, sufficiency of instructional materials.